Again, good afternoon and welcome to Sister's Place. Again, my name is Brother Vincent. I'm with the Stop the Killing campaign. We again welcome you here to Sister's Place. Again, this is a Know Your Rights workshop in regard to housing. We felt that the necessity of this is evident at each and every day. We see more and more of our people being displaced from Bedford-Stuyvesant, Bed-Stuy, do or die. And we try to get to the root of that because a lot of people have come up and said, what's going on in our neighborhoods? More and more of our community is being usurped, is being changed. Everything is not as it was. Not that change is necessarily a bad thing, but the character of our neighborhoods are changing. We see that more and more of our people are being forced out through the policies and dictates of housing issues which we wanted to address at this particular time. Again, we say that what's going on is not some amorphous phrase such as gentrification or urban renewal. We see this as ethnic cleansing, where the totality of it is, at the end of the day, residents of Bedford-Stuyvesant are being removed ethnically, and we say that is ethnic cleansing. We just see that for the last 20 years, the population of Bedford-Stuyvesant has gone from 74% black to, at this moment, just about 40%. And we're saying, is that by happenstance or is that systematic or designed? So that's why we're coming together today to get some answers from 5 speakers who have vast experience in the housing crisis which is going on right here in Bedford-Stuyvesant. So I'm going to just introduce those particular persons. And at this time, first, we're going to have Zachary Hale. He is from Brooklyn Legal Services Corporation A. Next, we're going to have Krista Baez from Impact Brooklyn. We're waiting for one of our other speakers. She's on her way. Her name is Carmella Carrington from 212 Jefferson Avenue. She is fighting a battle in regard to her being displaced from her home. Next, we're going to have attorney Alfred Toussaint from CAMBA. And finally, we have former Assembly member Charles Barron from East New York, who wants to give his knowledge and words of wisdom in regard to what has been going on, what we can do, and more importantly, how we can organize ourselves to fight against the displacement. Again, the ethnic cleansing. Sometimes they try to use these words as such nice words when actually it is a violence that is occurring where our people, again, are being moved out. They're being either bought out, they're being theft, they're being taxed out with the tax liens, the water foreclosure, the water bills, all sorts of mechanisms to, in the end of the day, remove our people from Bedford-Stuyvesant. So again, that's why we, with the Stop the Killing campaign, have started this Know Your Rights forum to educate the community, agitate, and more importantly, organize to fight for our very existence right here in Bedford-Stuyvesant. Okay, so enough of me talking. First, I'm going to introduce Zach Hale from Brooklyn Legal Services Corporation A. He's going to speak about tenant rights.
Sit down?
Yes, sit down and
all right. I feel like I'm at a press conference. Is this on? You're on. All right. Thank you, guys. So my name is Zach Hale. I work with Brooklyn Legal Services Corporation A. Some of you may know our work. We work here in the neighborhood. The office is on Fulton Street, just down the way, by Kingston, over by that McDonald's. So first of all, let me just say, please come by, right? If you have any questions about anything I say here, I didn't happen to have time to bring out materials, but we have a huge stack of them over at the office. Also, we do a lot of different things. I'll give a quick overview right now, but I only work in one area of all the areas that we do to help out in the community. And so if you have questions about some services that I described that is not my personal work, come talk to me about it. I'll get a card to you. I'll follow up with you. But also come by, 1471 Fulton. Again, it's on my card that I'll give out. But all kinds of services over there. So just a quick overview of what we do. Brooklyn Legal Services Corporation, A, has been working in Central and North Brooklyn for decades. We have a host of services that are aimed at helping a community thrive, right? Like you're saying, it's not that change is bad, but it's that you want the change to be directed from within to the empowerment of a community, not capital and interest ideologies from outside coming in and displacing people and trying to replace it with a different type of different type of capitalism, different type of kind of racist, frankly, frequently type of system that they want to replace some community, thriving community economies with. So what I mean by all that is we don't just work with tenants, though that's what I do. We also work with homeowners to avoid foreclosure, deed theft, to work on filing taxes. We also work with community organizations, nonprofits, and small businesses here in Bed-Stuy and in other parts of Brooklyn to help them to, whether it's negotiate a fair lease, to get out of commercial eviction, which is there are much fewer rights for commercial tenants than there are for tenants in housing. And just to empower the community itself to provide, right? And so that there's not as much of this kind of predatory outside interests coming in. And so what I do, I specialize, I'm within the housing unit, and I'm the group representation specialist for the organization. What that means is that I work with groups of tenants to sue their landlords. So you'll hear some other speakers today talking about your rights, about avoiding eviction, fighting back against landlord eviction and harassment. For me, my specialty is going in, working with tenant organizers like Crystal and others, and bringing a lawsuit that puts the landlord on their back feet, right? To get them knocked off balance, to try to take power away from them, because ultimately that's what needs to happen to get the transformation that we need. Is we have to take power away from the landlords, away from often these kind of big corporations that own buildings all across the city, and they make their money by extracting from communities, right? They buy a building, they save money by not making repairs. What I was saying is suing the landlord. So what kind of things can you sue your landlord about? First of all, has anyone in here ever sued their landlord? Brought them to court, sued them? All right, good. So you might notice that there's something going on in your apartment, or if you live in a standalone home, then this doesn't apply quite as much. But you may be in an apartment with several other tenants in the building, and you may notice something's going on. Rats, mice, roaches, the heat's cutting out, there's a leak, there's mold, things like that. Chances are, if it's happening to you, it's happening to your neighbors as well. And so one of the first things that I always talk to people about, and many of you may have this experience, is you talk to your neighbors, right? And you say, what are we all going through that's the same? You set down some common goals, and you might say, okay, well, we want to fix this. Maybe we feel like there's some kind of improvements that we need in the whole building, also just to our individual apartments. Put together a list. You can reach out to Brooklyn A, you can reach out to Impact, you can reach out to a number of these other organizations, and they can help you to file a lawsuit against the landlord to make them make the repairs. You can file complaints with city, state, and federal agencies for discrimination. There's a lot of discrimination that goes on in these buildings based on race, based on ethnicity, immigration status, family status, voucher status, and things like that. So you can get on the front foot, right? You don't have to wait and take it as an individual person who's going to eviction court and fighting back on eviction, which is important. But you can also get together with your neighbors and bring the landlord. I think it would be optimistic to say it actually brings the landlord to justice, right? We know that our court system and our government is very lopsided, and it basically sides with the landlords 9 times out of 10, regardless. We've had great champions in government like Mr. Barron, but I know that there have been many, many others who are champions for the other side. right? And they're the ones a lot of times to get their way. So I'm not going to sit here and be naive and pretend that just because you're able to sue your landlord, because you're able to file a complaint, that means you're going to win. Whether that means that the landlord's going to give up all their money and give the money back into the community, give the building to the tenants, etc. But there are examples of that happening. And the truth is, you don't win if you don't fight, right? And we're stronger together. And so when we come together as tenants, as renters, but even within a community that has homeowners and tenants and everything, coming together in spaces just like this, having conversations like this, and saying we're going to help each other, help ourselves, and fight for the stability of the neighborhood and also for the changes that we want to see. So I just want to bring up a couple more things really quickly, and then I'm happy to talk with anybody afterwards. Specifically, there's a couple things going on in New York right now that may be of interest, and I know that other speakers will bring up other things. One that you may be aware of is that the Section 8 voucher application is reopening, and that's something that I'm going to mention every single time I talk to anybody for the whole, for the past couple weeks, and for the next week opens up. And so tell your friends, tell everybody. You may already know all about it. Opens on midnight on Monday. So Sunday night, clock hits 12. Applications for Section 8 are open for the first time in years, and they'll stay open until the next Sunday. They're going to add, I think, 200,000 people to the wait list. I think that's right, maybe 20,000. I'm going to add a zero there because right now they've been working down the wait list, and it's been years. I know that some people have aged out and even passed away waiting on this wait list. So they're reopening it, which is very good news. Unfortunately, it'll be a lottery system. Maybe that's fortunate. So it really doesn't matter if you apply at midnight on Sunday or 11:59 the next Sunday, right? It'll be a lottery. Once all the people apply during that week, it'll be a lottery to pick and see if you're eligible for Section 8 vouchers. These will be the type of vouchers that you take with you to other places, not just located in Montgomery. The other thing that I think is going to apply to even more people potentially is the new set of housing protections that were just passed up in Albany that apply to New York City. We were just talking before this. They are weaker than what a lot of us were fighting for, and so it's easy to feel defeated. And to the extent that you can take a feeling of defeat for those of us that have been involved in the housing justice movement and use that as the fire that burns you to the next goal, good. But as far as you don't want to sit around and look at your shoes and mope, there are actual new rights that will apply to thousands of new tenants across New York City, in Brooklyn specifically. There are many, many buildings, not as many right in this part of Bed-Stuy, but definitely there are some in the neighborhood that will be protected that wouldn't have been protected before. So what are these protections? They are, you have a right to a lease, a renewal lease, right? So for many of you may be lucky enough to be in rent-stabilized housing, you know what that's like. You get a renewal lease every couple of years. That's a great benefit that not everybody gets. Now, more tenants, maybe some of you in this room, maybe some of your friends and families, will be entitled by law to a renewal lease at the end of your lease. That is if your building has 10 units or more, or, this is the tricky part that starts to look like a big puzzle, if your landlord owns 10 units or more across the whole state. So you might say, Zach, how would I know if my landlord owns 10 units or more across the state? You probably don't, and there's not really an easy way to find out yet, but people are working on that. For now, what that means is that if you're in one of these buildings that's not rent stabilized, but that was built before 2009, and it has at least 10 units in it, you just got a lot of new rights. Your rent cannot increase more than 10% year over year, and sometimes less. So this year, a rent increase in one of these buildings can only go up to something, I think, like 9.75%. So that's still a lot, but it's a lot less than some people are getting, right? I mean, I see 50% or more rent increases all the time. So 9% is better than that. Another thing, and this will kind of segue into my last point, is it's helpful if you want to organize with your neighbors to what I was talking about initially, go on the offensive and take the fight to your landlord. Because in a lot of buildings, when you take action like that against your landlord, the landlord says, okay, I'll wait you out, and I just won't give you a new lease. You know, I just won't renew your lease because you sued me. And technically, you can say that's retaliation, and you can take that to court, but the reality is that that's not really going anywhere right now. The landlord doesn't renew your lease. More than 9 times out of 10, you're going to be evicted if you don't move out. So with the good cause eviction laws that just passed and are in effect right now, I want to be clear, they are in effect right now. If you, because you're entitled to a new lease, if you sue the landlord, then they still, even while you're suing them and they're having to pay you out money and they're having to take your rent down, they're having to paint your walls, and fix your floors, and fix the lease, and they have to do all that, and they're grumbling to themselves about all this stuff, they still have to hand you a new lease. And that rent on that new lease can't be above 9-something% right now. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they made all these repairs, it doesn't matter that you sued them. And so I can tell you we might as tenants, as a tenant movement, as a housing justice movement, be upset that we didn't get all that we fought for, but those landlords are very upset because they're losing a lot of their tools that they were using to kick people out. And to go back to what they were saying, to make a neighborhood look different, right? To get rid of the families that have been there, to get rid of the people that have been there, and bring in, you know, whatever cookie cutter people they think are going to shop at the type of stores they want to shop at, and all those kind of things, right? So we're weakening the landlords, and we can keep on the march to do it. And like I said before, Brooklyn 8 does a lot more than just tenant stuff. That's my bag, but they also help with fighting foreclosures, filing taxes. If you have a small business or you work with a nonprofit that needs help with anything from taxes to a lease to other kinds of legal help, we provide that pro bono. So please don't be afraid to reach out to me or to come by 1471 Fulton and talk.
You know, these are the things that you're going to talk about to deal with a micro part of the housing problem. It's critically important, but then there's a macro part, and that's the part where good cause evictions didn't go nearly as far. As a matter of fact, real estate industry helped people, you know, do that bill, but whatever, like you said, whatever you can give and take and keep moving. And there's a lot around foreclosures in East New York. Brother, may he rest in peace, Brother Melvin Faulkner, we stopped over 100 families out of foreclosure. He's not even a lawyer, just going down there and making sure they show the right ownership and stuff like that. So fighting foreclosures and fighting the things, and we work well with the Legal Aid Society that was in East New York as well. Did some great work with them. But on a larger level, this thing called gentrification, ethnic cleansing, it's about power. Power is the great equalizer. If you don't have power, then you better have influence over the people who do have power. If you don't have either one, you have nothing. So we want to encourage you to either fight for power, organize for power, as you organize around issues to influence, and this is what we did in East New York. I am happy to say that East New York is not gentrified. May I clap on that?
I just left.
East New York is not gentrified, and I'm going to show you why. You could just pass this around. East New York is not gentrified and will not be gentrified, even though we're out of office, because a lot of the projects that we developed in East New York are already in the hopper. So no one can come in now and stop it and gentrify our neighborhood. So people say, what's going to happen when you and Inez leave? Are they going to be able to gentrify the neighborhood then? There's at least 5 projects that are already 100% affordable that's going to be built in the next 2-3 years. And I'm going to tell you how we did that, and I'll step aside for others. But if you look at these numbers on here, this is unheard of. And if you don't have one, if you could share it with a person, that is unheard of. Where in East New York, where could you get, my eyes are bad, somebody reading some of this stuff. Where could you get that kind of rent with that kind of income? In what neighborhood? Give my glasses out, you, since y'all ain't. Nowhere.
Nowhere.
Not even outside of New York. Yeah.
Outside recreation, bicycle storage, laundry room, none of this. Nowhere, we don't even have that here.
So look at it, this is what we're trying to do. You see where it says 1 bedroom, the unit size? Where are you gonna get a 1 bedroom unit for $413 a month rent? And have a minimum and maximum income of 16,000 to 21 to 25 to 30, a 2 bedroom for $502 a month?
Wow. Go ahead, y'all.
2 bedroom? We don't just be talking rhetoric, you know, I'm always beating up white men in power and talking stuff, but we have substance, not symbolism, substance. Where could you get a 3 bedroom for only $1,000 a month, and you're making $39,000 a month? This is what we were able to get, and this is just one out of thousands of units that we were able to get 100% affordability. And just do me one favor too, if everybody take one of these. Did everybody get one?
Yes.
And I want you to open it up. I'm going to show you something. Then I'll get into, let you see how. First of all, just open up and look at my queen. Give my queen a big hand clap. This was my last newsletter that we had done before we left. By the way, Vincent was on staff. Give Vincent a big hand clap. He helped us out. Brother Owen Clay was my chief of staff. Give him a big hand clap. And Viola Plummer, may she rest in peace, was my chief of staff as well. You worked with us too.
Yes, sir.
Right. So now look, if you open this up, and you see on this side, you see where the housing and stuff is, we're talking about 2,600 units, and we made them name it Alafia Village. Alafia Village, 2,600 units, 100% affordable to the income band of East New York. 100% affordable. And look at that beautiful house. This is just a tip of the iceberg. We had over 20,000 units of affordable housing as we define affordability. Everybody says affordable housing. Well, the minute you say affordable housing, you gotta say affordable to who? And how are you defining affordability? So these are the things I wanted to share with you so that you can see the concrete things that happen. You know what else we were able to do? We got over $110 million in renovating parks. We have the best parks in the city is in my beloved East New York.
Go ahead.
Come on, y'all got
Go ahead,
I got to pause for that. But on the real side, $110 million over the last 22 years we were in for. We have three, and it's in the brochure here, 3 $88 million schools built from the ground up. 3. I'll tell you how many 88 million, and we have 2 libraries, new ones built from the ground up. That's the capital, and I did all of this being black, bad, in your face, taking on governors, mayors, speakers, all of those people in power that your elected officials say they gotta be cool so they can get something. So how does a Black Panther get into the electoral arena, don't wear no shirts and ties, When I went up to the state assembly, they told me I couldn't sit down unless I had a shirt and tie. That's the decor of the state assembly. I said, I don't wear them. They said, why not? I said, because I'm not European, I'm African. And he said, oh, you from Africa? I said, yes. What country? I said, I don't know which one y'all took me from.
That's right.
But I'm from there, so I don't wear shirts and ties. And they said, well, that's the decor. So when you come up to the state assembly, Sheldon Silver was the speaker then. He was saying, well, you're not going to get in without a shirt and tie. Well, not only did I get in, he went to jail after I got in. You have to take them on, even on those things that may appear to be insignificant and small. Because once you take that stand, they see who you are, they see you're not for sale. You should have seen the stuff I've been offered. Developers come in my office, me and you are going to be very rich. Get the hell out of my office. This meeting is terminated before it starts. Made them walk. Here's how you stop gentrification. East New York, right now as I speak, East New York is 67% black and 23% Latino. We are 90% black and Latino. And that's what it was when I came in 22 years ago, and that's what it is now.
Yeah!
The white population decreased. It was 8 to 9%, now it's 3.5%. These are facts. They left on their own. I didn't do nothing. They decided to go for some strange reason. They said, Charles, you ain't all that. I saw some white people on the number 3 train. They were passing through. They were visiting and leaving. We stopped gentrification this way. Every council member could stop gentrification. Every last one of them. They have a thing in the city council called the MIH, the Mandatory Inclusionary Housing. When a project is on city-owned property, it has to go through the city council for final approval. And even if a property is on private property and they want to rezone and go up higher or have some zoning changes, it has to go through the city council. And when it goes to the zoning committee will give deference to the local council member. So we have 51 council members. The council has the power to pass the city budget, not the mayor. The council passes the budget. So you got this spineless council sometimes that says, oh, the mayor, he's cutting $450 million from the education budget. We say no. This is the council members saying no. You vote for the budget. You don't have to write to the mayor and say, we don't want those cuts. Don't vote for it. But if they say no, the budget's not passed. That's power. And the semblance of power that we had, and that's why I can stay black, strong, no ties around my neck or to the system. We can stay strong because we had the power. The chair of the land use committee or the chair of the zoning committee, when a project comes into East New York, is going to call me up. Charles, do you want it? No. No press conferences, no rallies, nothing. The project is dead. Bed-Stuy is gentrified because of your black politicians.
Yeah.
No white politician was in Bedford-Stuyvesant gentrifying this neighborhood. Blacks did it. I sat next to them when they did it. And damn near begged them not to. A project came into Bed-Stuy, only 25% affordability and 75% market. Meaning you have to make 100,000, 150,000 to get in these units here. Your council members passed that. I said, council member, why don't you at least go up to 60%, at least 60.
What's his name?
Alwyn, may he rest in peace. Tish James, may she, I'm not say that. But Tish James was another one. Carnegie, horrible, was definitely one. They all, Hakeem Jeffries, they floated him as some big time star. His local area was 74% black when he came in Clinton Hills as the assembly member. It is now 38% black.
Yeah.
38% black. And yet they had Hakeem Jeffries, Lori Combo. Crystal Hudson ain't a whole lot better. She talks more progressive, but she gives in to those same numbers. When you meet them, when you talk with them, ask them the percentage of affordability and how are they defining affordability. This is key. I'll leave you over with this. The area median income determines affordability. The AMI. Always ask them, so what's the AMI for this project? Break it down for me. Let me see all of, these are the AMI numbers. All of this is about the area median income. So when you say HUD defines affordability as 80% of New York City's area median income. So if New York City's area median income, which it is right now, 127,000 for a family of 3, what's 80% of that? 90 plus thousand. And then you ask the next question to the developer, what's the neighborhood AMI? What's the neighborhood AMI? I think your neighborhood AMI is 40-something thousand, 50-something thousand maybe. Do y'all know the AMI here? We got to know that. We got to know that. You can't say stop gentrification and we ain't fighting this and that. You got to know that the way we being gentrified is that you're not respecting the area median income of Bedford-Stuyvesant. I asked this developer who said he was going to do affordability, what is the area median income of East New York, my section of East New York? He said he didn't know. Or you building affordability in my area and you don't know the area median income of my neighborhood, then you're lying or you think I'm stupid. Canceled the meeting, kicked him out. When he came back, I said, let me tell you what it's going to be. You know what the area median income of East New York in the 60th Assembly District or 42nd Council District? $36,000 for a family of 3. $36,000. So if that developer comes in, if we don't know what that is, and they sit down and say, hey, we're going to have 100% affordability, and you don't know the area median income, they can tell you anything. I told him 80%, that's what that is. 80% is going to be those making 30, 40, 50,000, and this is what the rent's going to be. And then he said, could you sign off now? No. Who are you hiring to do the building?
Get him, Charles.
Because I want to make sure that we have union workers and local community workers getting the prevailing wages to build.
Black power.
That's right.
Get him,
That's
Charles.
right. And this is what we have to do in our neighborhoods. So while we organizing our issues, get all the services you can from legal aid, because that is needed, we got to organize for power. You got to take these people out. They don't care whether you call them names or nothing. We got to organize for power.
That's right.
And the people that are in power now are betraying you. I call them, my word I've been using on WBAI is sycophants. Y'all say sycophants.
Sycophants.
That is sycophants. A sycophant.
Calling words.
These are people who suck up to people in power for personal gain. A sycophant is one who kisses part of the anatomy of people in power that they ought not be kissing for personal gain, not our collective liberation.
When are you on radio?
I have those green cards, if you can give everybody one. They are every WBAI on every Friday from 5 to 6. We have a program, Inez and I, called Speaking Truth to Power. And if you want to know who the weekly sycophants are, just tune in, because I'm calling them out. I must say that I have to have a category of sycophants. A first-class sycophant is a traitor. A second-class sycophant is an opportunist. And a third-class sycophant is an ignorant, go along to get along person. Take care now. So we have to organize for power as we organize around issues. I do have to go to a few other things. I don't know if I want to do question and answer now, or I'm not fair to the other people that they got to speak to. But I just wanted to come to say, we did it in East New York, and we don't have no magic. We just have spine to stand up to the people in power, and your interests have to be the liberation of our people. And then let me say this finally, in the context of all of this housing, reparations, freeing up political prisoners, we have to fight for revolution. Because if we don't change the entire system, we're going to have problems. Everybody's happy about Trump being convicted, a convicted felon. Well, if you don't convict capitalism, and if you don't convict colonialism, and you don't convict imperialist wars, it won't matter whether the manager of the colonial capitalist system is Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Bush, Clinton, or Biden. They are all administrators of the same colonial capitalist system. And if you think I'm just talking, look at the budgets. Look at the Pentagon budget of all five of them. It's the same amount. 800 billion, 900 billion, no different from Barack Obama or Trump.
Discussion focused on strategies, tactics, how do we move forward, developing a sense of clarity around some of the ideas that was brought forth to us today. So the median area income, how do we use that as part of the campaign? How do we deal with the mandatory inclusion housing? These are things that we heard about today for the first time. Some of us know about it already. With the people in this room, we can move further towards making Baez look more like East New York, because that's just the Carmella said. There is a difference. And the difference is based on what we've been able to do, and part of what we want to do now is start with a couple questions that lead us to that conversations, but the things that you all know and understand can also bring us to a point where this time next week, we're actually in the street building out the knowledge that we developed here today. So Christian is going to move us through some of the questions. All of the speakers said there are specific things that you can talk to them about in terms of individual cases, but right now we got to talk about the community, what we can do as a community. All right?
Straight ahead.
So I'm going to start with the first question, and then we can have related follow-ups. Again, the goal of this is to have a guided discussion in order to organize and mobilize. So the first question is, besides the organization of the people in the streets, who are the specific people that we need to identify who will join in the resistance?
So I would say some of the resources that we essentially say are the most important is definitely educating yourself, knowing your rights. That's the one thing. Like I think Zach had mentioned before. There's a website called Who Owns What. You put in your address. You can see if there's litigations against your landlord. You see how many violations there are in your building. You see who's been making the violations, what apartments. Just based upon that, if you're all having the same issue of no heat, mold, no repairs being done, like I said, if there's litigation against the landlord, what's stopping everyone from coming together? You're already taking the first step in educating yourself on what's going on in your building, what's going on with the person who owns your building. Because you can also see how many buildings they own around New York. You can also see the data within those other buildings of violations, repairs needed. What's stopping you from Googling your landlord to see what family he belongs to, what kind of business does he run, is there any more legal trouble within him or his family? It's all about just educating yourself first, and then you can go into different tactics. Whether it's tenant organizing within a TA, creating a tenant association, coming together to essentially say, oh, let's withhold rent, let's hire a lawyer, let's try to find different resources. If we're all withholding the rent, we're all gonna end up in housing court. A judge is gonna be like, what's going on? It's important to kind of make sure that you're getting the attention brought to things that are wrong in your building, the issues that are happening, and also to going on social media, going to the press about what is happening in your community, making sure that you're educating yourself and also banding together for those who may be scared to kind of speak up, maybe scared to be advocated for, making sure that you can be a leader and an advocate for those who can't be. So that's what I would say.
Yes, and I want to piggyback on that. That's exactly what I did. I formulated, I spoke out, I went on social media. I wasn't afraid, and I wanted to be that face for other people that were suffering in silence. And definitely also formulate something. I feel like there's nothing in Bedford-Stuyvesant for us to formulate, to go to, so I'm working on doing something like that as well, and working with other groups. I think we all need to work with other groups as well. Collectively, it's greater in numbers. So that's what's really needed, and then just go out and campaign and speak on it. So yeah, that's what's needed.
In terms of resources, when I left the city council, we were fighting for, I wanted 10 million. I think they got about 2 to 3 million for community land trust, the CLTs, community land trust. We have an East New York community land trust. And the community land trust concept is, these developers, they get the land cheap. They used to get it for $1, city-owned land, because the city wants to get out of the housing business. If we start a community land trust and find out more information about it, then you can actually get city-owned land, and you will determine what's built on it. So right now, it's good to do an inventory. This is not a whole lot of land available in Bedford-Stuyvesant, but do an inventory. I used to every year find out how much city-owned land was available in East New York. And then when I would get that, then we would say, well, what projects, what RFPs are you sending out for people to build on that land? And I had to fight. We had power in the city council, and I was able to get some black developers to be not, when you hear about WMBEs, Women Minority Enterprises, man, that could be a white woman. That could be anybody they consider a minority. I used to say we want black contractors, and not just subcontracts, but general contracts. The GC and the developer needs to be black. That's where the real power and control over land and housing is. So I would suggest that you look at the money that's out there to start community land trusts, and look into starting that. And there's also, I think, about 800,000 or 500,000 on the state for worker cooperatives, for you to start a collective ownership of enterprises instead of the capitalist structure. But worker cooperatives and community land trusts are the way you empower yourself to deal with the land question in the neighborhood.
Excellent.
I just want to ask a follow-up question to Crystal and Carmella, because you all touched on the idea that sometimes renters tenants who are under this pressure and strain, they often suffer in silence. So in trying to build a campaign, like how do we get those people out front to say, this is what's happening, so we can actually be in the street making noise?
Definitely, for me, it was social media. Speaking on social media, and once they saw me on social media, everyone was asking, how can they help? Or this happened to my grandmother's house, and they wanted to know more information. So definitely, social media was my first source, and then collectively working with other organizations and just going out in like environments like this, and there's always someone in the audience that has experienced the same thing, and just always making people feel welcome, like it's okay. You can get through it.
I would say one of the things that one of the tenants that I work for, basically, she had reached out to, I think, Rita Joseph's office. So I think utilizing local elected officials that are actually going to listen and actually help you look for the right resources. So Rita Joseph's office had actually reached out to me to work with this building. So I would say definitely one of the things that helps people try to get out into the street, helps people kind of speak out, get out of their shell, would be just a listening ear. Just having me be an advocate for some of the people that live in this building, it kind of gave them the motivation, like, okay, someone's listening to us, somebody's helping us, somebody's gonna be there every step of the way, even though essentially I'm not the one going to court with them, I'm not the one doing the legal stuff. If they need someone to listen to, they always have my phone number. If the landlord has kind of he's already harassed them. He harasses them for the rent, he harasses them in so many different ways that when they call me, I can call the landlord because he's not gonna speak to me like that. He's gonna look at me like, oh, she's an educated young woman, she knows what she's doing. But at the end of the day, by working with these tenants, I'm helping them become people that can't be taken advantage of. Now, the landlord doesn't even dare walk into the building because the residents are ready to fight back. They're ready to speak up. They're not afraid of him anymore. So essentially just working with organizations, working with local elected officials that are actually gonna help and listen and be with them every step of the way. So that's why I think community, making sure the right people are getting in touch with the community to then essentially give them the motivation, give them the help. That's what I would say.
Does anyone else from the audience have a follow-up question regarding resources or organizing techniques?
Please, anybody, can the tenants make the repairs as tenants collectively that need to be done in their apartments through the rent that they are holding?
No, I wouldn't advise that. There's a belief that if you have significant repairs in your apartment, you can withhold rent. And that's something I would definitely advise somebody do, but don't ever spend the money until the landlord takes you to court. Because you have to let the process play itself out, because it's once you get to court that the judge is going to make a determination of how much of that money you can actually keep. So the fact that you're not even paying the rent to the landlord, that should be either an incentive for him to start doing the repairs or take you to court. So that's getting more assertive and doing something. But once you spend the money, you probably end up putting yourself in a hole, because if the judge ends up ruling against you, then now you got to try to come up with the money.
And if I can just, that's completely right. I would say the same thing. I talk to people about this a lot, and sometimes you may feel that you really don't have a choice. In an ideal world, tenants could just take collective action and make the repairs they need to make. in a lot of situations, you're not gonna get that money back. The court's still gonna say you owe that money. There are some narrow situations where you may be able to make it happen, but I would say it's case by case. Reach out to a lawyer, potentially to ask before you do it, and get advice before you do it, because it's not a general rule. There is a repair and deduct is what it's called, but it's very case by case, and I wouldn't rely on it. But obviously sometimes that window won't close and it's winter, you gotta fix it, right? You don't have the luxury of waiting until you're in court. If that happens, you don't have time to talk to a lawyer, you don't have time to do that. Save every receipt, make every application first in writing to the landlord. This is my problem, I need it fixed, it is urgent, it is significant, it is hazardous to my health and my family. And then if they don't respond, and you give them a deadline, and then you absolutely have to do it, spend as little money as possible because you might not get it back, save every receipt, and then you sit back and you wait and withhold the rest of your rent, because if that's all you withhold is that $100 that it took to fix that window, they're not gonna take you to court and you're never gonna get it back. It's gonna sit there on your balance month after month, and they're gonna use that to threaten you with eviction and try to wield that power over you. So hold all of your rent back in that situation and make them take you to court and make the judge see the receipt in that situation. I completely agree with the initial point. This is not a advisable thing to do outside of a real emergency, but sometimes, like I said, it's hot, it's cold, it's a leak, you just can't live that way. You have to do something about it. In that case, be careful, talk to a lawyer, save your receipts, writing.
And also, you should definitely call 311. I don't want to tout the agencies too much, but at least 311, most of the time, they'll eventually come, they'll do an inspection, and they'll put violations. And all that does is it bolsters your evidence to the point where they actually take you to court, and you're trying to convince the judge that, this is the reason why I held on to the rent. But now that you have a city agency that came to the house, reviewed it, usually they'll make the appointment within 2 weeks to a month, but they'll definitely, eventually come in and do these inspections.
And if it's a multi-dwelling apartment building and you want to do a rent strike, which I don't suggest you do unless everybody's down with it, all the money goes into an escrow account. And you hook up with a lawyer, all of it goes into an escrow account, and then if it goes to court, then the judge will decide, and at least you have all your rent there. In the event it doesn't go your way, you still pay the rent, and if it does, then the deduction of repairs will be there. But I wouldn't mess around with that unless you really got some legal advice to move to it.
All right, we got a follow-up.
Peace, thank you. I apologize, I came a little bit late, so I apologize if it was answered already, but could you speak at all about HP actions, and if those are helpful or not, and group HP actions, if those are still effective, you guys think? And I also wanted to hear if you have anything that, if these tactics that you described would also be effective, you think, in public housing, or you think there are other things that could be done for public housing residents? Thank you.
When it comes to public housing, HP actions don't work because essentially the judge is looking at it as this is the city suing the city. So they're not going to do that. So if you have significant issues, you're going to have to go to the major office of NYCHA to complain about that particular project that you're in. With respect to, I'm sorry, I forgot the other part of the question.
So it was two questions.
Oh yeah, you said HP
Are
actions.
these tactics that you described so far effective for public housing residents, and the other one was about HP actions? You think they work in general?
HP actions can work.
Can you say what HP actions are?
HP actions stands for housing preservation, but it's essentially the type of case, or the only type of case that you can start as a tenant against the landlord. And this type of case is when you're seeking to get repairs done. You can also start this particular type of case if the landlord is also harassing you now. So that's fairly new, but for the most part, HP actions is when you want to get specific repairs done, all right? And they usually require you to call 311 ahead of time. So by the time you get to court, there's already a record, report ready. And what happens in these court actions is you end up negotiating with an attorney from HPD. So that's why they call it, I guess, an HP action, because it's part of the whole housing and preservation department. So they have their own attorneys. So it'll be you and potentially your attorney, an HPD attorney, as well as the landlord. So HPD is there to ensure that the repairs are done, and if they're not done, there's a certain calculation of, because they have a tier. They have A violations, B violations, C violations being the worst, and there's a specific fine amount that goes against the landlord depending on the gravity of the violations.
I'll just, group HP cases, just, that's my bread and butter, that's basically all I do. And I would say that it is, and some rent strike non-payment cases. It's good to do both. If you can do both, right, you need a whole package situation, because as he's saying, you know, the group HP case can work. That doesn't mean it will work, and it almost is never enough on its own. It might get some repairs done, but it should be, if possible, you work with Impact, you work with CAMBA, you work with Brooklyn A. Try to develop a cohesive strategy around what the tenant association is doing. If you can couple it with a rent strike, if you can couple it with press coverage, get your electeds in there, get people, use it as a power building moment, a visibility building moment to put the pressure on it, because just going to court, those courts love landlords, right? I mean, it's true, right? And they are built for the landlords. The court is built to evict you. It's not built to help you, right? And the fact that you can squeeze a little bit of help if you hit it just right is not enough, right? You still have to do it, because we have to show those numbers. You know, we have to say, look, there's enough demand. There's tenants all over the city filing these HP cases. That's why we need 2 HP. There's a dozen, you know, Brooklyn Housing Court. Unfortunately, maybe some of you have been. A dozen courtrooms to evict people. 1 for repairs. And you've been there when it's been full, right? I know. And so during COVID, for a little bit, they opened up a second room. They opened up a second room for us, and that was a big, I was part of a big push to keep that room open. And they closed it on us because they needed to get that eviction mill going again, get people out of their houses again, right? More important to fill the shelters than to paint the walls, right? So I just want to say it's important to file it. Don't get your hopes up that it's going to save everything, but it's important. To me, I think it's an important tool, and it can work. Also, speaking about NYCHA, that's so correct. Unfortunately, it is. Every level is against it working. But I've had some success with HPs with NYCHA. I would say there's specific tactics you have to take. It really will you almost have to start an HP to get an inspection, because HPD won't come and do so you have to go to housing court, and some NYCHA developments, like at Red Hook, where I've done a lot of work, will have on site, like the Community Justice Center. And you can go in there and they'll help fill out the paperwork, and then that'll get the inspection. So that's an important thing. The other thing, just one more thing about in public housing for these repairs, if you want to get an abatement, so a lot of times you want your money, you don't just want a safe house, which you do, and fix your stuff, right? But you want money back, because it may have damaged your things, or you just don't think you have to pay the rent. Because it's a city agency that's doing the housing, you have to go through a process called a notice of claim. All right, you have to do it within 90. This is like this. So many tenants that I work with, residents in NYCHA, because they never knew, because no one tells you, they never filed the thing, and they won't get their money back, no matter how much evidence they have of what happened. So you got to file a notice of claim about the damages to put the city on notice that you're going to come after their money, right? And I'll tell you this though, that's sometimes just all the leverage you need. Because when those NYCHA lawyers get to court, they don't want to give you anything. And you show them that you filed a notice of claim, and now they know they might have to, that brings them to the bargaining table. So with a little bit of leverage, a little bit of knowledge, just to help. Long answer, sorry.
Just one other thing on NYCHA. The RAD and PAC program in NYCHA, the privatization of NYCHA, we weren't able to stop it in about 3 of my public housing developments. 1 is still battling it. And here's the challenge. When NYCHA said, we have a $30-40 billion capital need to fix up stuff, boilers and all that. 30-40 billion between the state and the city, they could take care of it. But they don't. Eric will give a billion or two and say, I gave something to NYCHA, when the need is like 40 billion. And the state gives little or nothing. So what they did is they privatized it. They didn't allow for these private companies to own the building. NYCHA still does that, but they manage, they take over the management of the building. So they're really in control. What I was fighting for is for the city and state to fund tenant management. Let the tenants manage where they live and provide them with the technical assistance of lawyers and accountants and whatever they need. But I believe in tenant-owned management of NYCHA developments. And we need to fight for that because that's a very important part. Right now, they took over 3, and see, it was so hard because when you get, I'm up here fighting, saying, y'all don't sign it. You know what they did? They changed their lease from Section 9 to Section 8. Section 9 is public money, so no private folk can have any access to Section 9. They made the tenants sign a new lease for Section 8 so that the private sector can then get that money. And now, I don't blame the tenants for not listening to us because we saying, no, let's continue to fight. We don't live there. They do. And the state and the city wasn't giving up anything. So we were in a bind. And they said, we love you, Charles, but come on now. So they all signed off on that. And they're doing some superficial fix-ups and all of that. But what's going to happen 2-3 years from now, the stuff is going to kick in that could kick them out. And I was trying to tell them, hold on, just for another couple of years. You know, I'm going to my little private home, but but they didn't in at least 3 of the developments. And I think about 22,000 units across the city. So they're trying to privatize public housing, and that's the whole capitalist idea of maximizing profits and privatizing healthcare, privatizing housing, even private jails. And all of this is under the capitalist economy, which is why we always have to keep the colonial capitalist system in mind when we're struggling around these micro issues.